Welcome, everybody. This is actually a topic I feel like we've been talking about it all week. Kevin and I were talking about it, and Jan and I have been talking about it. And actually, the topic came up at the last Innovators Conference, which is what led to this session today. As Jan mentioned, I spent lots of time helping companies find new innovations. And then about 12 years ago, I was invited to be the executive director of the Innovation Initiative at Fisher MBA College, and I fell in love with teaching and igniting in other people the ability to do. And that's what we've been refining over the last 12 years. And what I wanted to share today, because it seems like it is this hashtag trending topic, right? Whether it's people saying at the last conference, whether it's people saying that they wish they had, that they dramatically underestimated the mindsets that needed to be in place, or whether it's people saying, we wish we would have baked it in along the way, or we're just starting now, how do we plan for it? I think, the good news is you can plan this into your efforts and you can get maximum impact out of a relatively small investment. We're going to talk in a while later in this session about how you can get impact with a team of just 3. And just as a foreshadowing event, I want to thank Kevin McLean, who is one of the OG innovation team members at Nationwide Insurance. And we're going to go into the Wayback Time Machine to 2016. And Kevin's going to share some of the secrets of how he really got the program going. In the meantime, I'd like to ask you guys just to get a pulse on the audience. Does the frozen middle affect your company? And you can just drop a 1 in chat if it's a lot, a 2 for some, or a 3 for not at all. If you do put a 3 in, you might want to use this time some other way, because it sounds like you already have it figured out. And I don't know if I will be able to see the chat in presentation mode.
There's lots of 1s and 2s.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, Jan. We are going to be like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers here, I can tell. So this is a problem clearly that's resonating with everybody. I want to get a little bit more detail. If we think about 4 layers of progressively melting the middle, from developing our leaders and equipping innovation teams, and then really getting sort of everyone engaged, so coalitions outside of your direct control. And then really just, we have got it down. It is in our culture, endemic everywhere. If you consider developing leaders 1 and inclusivity for everyone 4, if you could drop in the chat 1, 2, 3, or 4, where would you assess your organization at today? So, and there's a reason for that, because I think while we all know it's important to get into unfreezing the middle, it's really opaque. How are people doing it, and how are we making that leap? And that's what I'm going to share with you guys today. So first of all, I have to just touch on, what does it cost us? Having this frozen layer and lack of engagement that comes with it really can cost us a lot, because while we work hard to create the desired experiences for our customers, when the middle is frozen, it can really cost us, as this story went viral, when people have disappointing experiences that don't live up to their promises. And this story is about the lost purse and someone's struggle with a store manager to have them understand that it's not just about fresh guac and chips, it's about an amazing experience, even if that means reuniting someone with forgotten stuff. It costs us in other ways too, though. Now that we have this enlightenment at the top and this support, it's costing us in missed opportunities. So if you're familiar with PillPack, they took a different tact and they organized medications by the time that you take them instead of by type of medication. It has created tremendous value in the marketplace. This is quite a while ago that they were acquired for $1 billion. You have to ask, why didn't CVS or Kroger Pharmacy or someone else, in all of the interactions between pharmacists and their customers, why didn't that frozen middle hear that and bubble that up? And was it because no one said, tune your ears for this and we're interested in hearing about it? So it can really cost us in missed opportunities. And I think it can cost us in other ways. very tangible ways for our own projects when we have team members who just don't have that enlightened customer-centric view, right? We have to slow down and try to get them on board and get them, out of the picket line and into the parade. There's my first metaphor of the day. I can't stop myself from using metaphors. Type a yes if you are experiencing this in your company. Sometimes these people are really in very high level and impactful positions, and we need to get them on board.
A lot of yeses.
A lot of yeses. Yeah.
I think there's not a single no, to be honest.
Okay. So, and I think I have you pretty sold on the impact of this, but I also want to think more aspirationally about this, right? I don't know if you saw this video. If you haven't, I would Google this. This is just an incredible moment where the football stars, and this is over in Europe, so it's the other football, brought their water boy onto the field and put one of their medals on him and just made his day. And I think, at its best, when we get all the way to that inclusive culture, we are respecting everyone. We are showing up as the best of who we are as humans and really delivering that. And so to me, like, this is almost even more important than the business goal is to help people rise up to this level. And so knowing that we're all in violent agreement on that, how do we get people involved beyond our team? And so in broad strokes, there are really three main portions to this story, right? Three main chapters. And so the first is we got to create a core group of catalysts. It's maybe 25 to 75 people, depending on your organization. They're well-versed in this new language and mission, and they're able to create solutions. Then we want to find some enlightened group to partner with, that maybe it's a business unit or otherwise, where we can transform the way that they work to produce the first win and then rinse and repeat. And then the very connected piece is, how do we expand those catalysts? So we like to say many need to know a little. In the original group, a few need to know a lot, but now many need to know a little. And we really need to get their hearts and minds involved. And this is where I like to think of another metaphor. How do you melt a sheet of ice with minimum effort for maximum impact? You throw rock salt on it, and that rock salt goes to work melting in its particular area, spreads out, and then all those circles connect, and lo and behold, you've melted the whole sheet. That's what we're doing here. And we found sort of a magic number, that 5%. If you throw that out through legal and finance and ops and all of these different departments, just 5% of your employees will then go on and influence the people around them. And that's really start moving up the hockey stick in adoption. So one of the areas that I think that people have been telling me is really opaque is, okay, so how do you train people? How do you engage them? Because, we all know you can spend 20 grand and send people away for a week and they can get incredible training, but that's not very sustainable budget-wise. Or our other choice is you spend $150, you do something asynchronous online, but what you miss there is the opportunity when everyone has read the really cool book or seen that movie, we come back and we're excited and it becomes a shorthand. It's this experience that we've had together that lets us call out a line or a joke from the movie and all be in on it. And that's the space that we're striving to be in between those two things, something that's highly coached, that has learning objectives that are baked in by learning by doing, and that will double people's mindsets and behaviors in a matter of hours, not weeks or months. And so I'm going to share with you guys 5 keys that we've learned over the last 12 years for really making this transformation happen and happen quickly. So the first one is resist all urge to be a highly productive person and jump right in, right? You've gathered together 25 people. Their time's really important. Let's get down to business. We have found every single time, and Kevin would back me up on this, every single time we were tempted to take these 30 minutes and use them for something else, we were so happy we didn't, because we talk about democratizing a room, the leaders and the middle, but what's even more important is democratizing the types. The bias that's in place is, this is the ideator's domain, this is the creative person's venue, and so I don't really have a role, or I'm not valued. And the reality is that you're not going to get an idea all the way out into the market without the project managers, without the people who think of all the logistics in detail. And in this, we begin to establish some trust in the group where people really value that I need the type. In fact, if you look on that diagram, the type diagonally opposite you is oftentimes the type that you need the most. The second is, let's have some fun, right? This doesn't have to be, work, work, work. People learn and engage more when they're having fun. So if we're talking to people about empathy, let's have them experience empathy. Let's do an empathy exercise. We have some ones that we've done where I think I could hand out an Oscar for the performances, where we have role played people in different situations and everyone's really gotten into it, but they all come away. We've done one on aging where people have come away and said, oh my God, I want to go home and hug my grandmother. Like when you ignite that empathy in people, it really begins to change how they see their work and their world. The third one is obviously having people experience design thinking in a live project. At some point, if you want to learn how to swim, you got to get in the pool. You got to get wet and get in the pool. So we design live projects for this. But I think what we've discovered is it's not just having people experience design thinking, it's having people experience their ability to do design thinking. And so I want to ask, what's the average tenure of employees in your organization or in your clients' organizations, Jan? Right, there's a career risk is a very real barrier for people. I'm seen as an expert. I don't want to look like a dummy. And so, we want these projects to be very accessible. And we're very choiceful. We've got over 8 projects, very choiceful in which ones we pick for people so that they come away feeling like I know more than I thought I did, and I naturally have the inclination. Now I've sort of had a structure and a vocabulary and an approach put around it. So we're wanting people to believe in themselves. And that's what connects to the intrinsic motivation versus the extrinsic. Jan, out of curiosity, what kind of numbers of tenure are we seeing?
I find it interesting. So there's a lot of around to the 10, 12, 15 years.
Right. So that's 10, 12, 15 years where I feel like I know our customer. Now, we all know that customer trends are changing all the time. And so who your customer was 15 years ago is surely not who your customer is today, which leads me to the fourth point. This is one I'd really fall on my sword for, I believe, and designed our company around this one. Personas have a place for sure, but just like this picture of a cat is made up of all of these pictures of individual cats. It's the individual stories, the interesting quirks and things that make us human that are what inspire us. They ignite our empathy and they inspire us to solve and hear and see human beings. And I think that those stories are the currency of empathy. So however you design your program, incorporating the opportunity to hear from customers is key. And I'm curious. So if you think outside of your group and market research and UX and innovation, among that frozen middle, legal, finance, ops, how often do those folks, that other 80% of your company, get to actually talk to customers live?
Never,
right? Never.
Well, almost. There was an almost never.
There was an almost. Okay. So kudos to whoever it isn't almost, but what we normally hear is never. And more importantly, what we hear when we do introduce people to clients is they come away, and honestly, that's the biggest transformation, is people didn't say what they thought they were going to say. And we might introduce, say, a financial services company, somebody to a boomer who's no longer a partner at Deloitte, but is now offering, working for Boar's Head, doing samples in the grocery store so that she doesn't crack her nest egg and has some socialization. And that customer is very different. Their needs are very different than the traditional 401k participant. And that's where the epiphany happens, where people go, oh my gosh, they want something different. We do it in terms of we pair our live projects. And the reason our company is called Live Lab is that we've recruited hundreds of people and paired them with our projects so that we can bring them in and have them deliver that epiphany. And that's sort of the Easter egg in all of this. Is my big learning when I went from consulting to teaching was, in consulting, you're paid to give the answer. In teaching, it's more like inception. You need to create the experience or the question where somebody else comes to the realization and then has that aha themselves. So they realize, oh my gosh, like when I ask people, or I can ask people, and they will tell me what some new unmet needs are. This number 5 is almost what I affectionately call the pancake that goes to the dog. So if you make pancakes like me, the first pancakes are somewhat unedible. It might soak up all the oil, but pretty much the dogs know that one's theirs. It's sort of the same thing. We like to do a project where there are no experts, and it feels almost like a throwaway. So I don't have to worry about getting everything right in this project. So let's go solve someone else's problem. And what happens is you can always pull parallels out of that other problem into your own space, but everyone now has the same sort of knowledge level. One of them that we love, without giving it away, it's a project to work in a $45 billion space that has an expert recommendation twice a year, that has free and inexpensive solutions, and yet only 25 to 30% of people use them as they're supposed to. And what happens in this sprint, when people talk to people about why they don't do what they do, is empathy gets ignited and they start blowing up this category. They start thinking like a startup and saying, the way it's currently done is ridiculous. We need to change this. And so they develop in themselves the ability to start to be bolder and look at the world differently. Then we can lift and shift those attitudes and mindsets to their own category. So it really helps just to feel like it's much easier to blow up somebody else's world, right? And think differently, and then say, okay, now I'm going to think about mine, but I'm going to bring some of that same sort of feeling to it. Number 6, there's only 7. Number 6 is we're all about building shorter, easier bridges to cross to action. So because we want everyone, if you're going to unfreeze the middle, you need to turn everybody into the someone. We say, we want you to be the someone. I have literally handed out, hello, my name is tags that say someone on them at the end of these sessions, because we want you and expect you from going through this to contribute. And 10 types of innovation is a great framework to get people to think beyond products. We have some proprietary frameworks around CX that show people how they personally can contribute, as well as at the enterprise level. But I personally feel like frameworks are a great way to help people find that shorter, faster bridge. And then number 7 is be the one that sponsors engagement, right? Let people show up as humans. And Peter and I have had conversations about this. We're both big on hashtag be human, because I think during the session to say to people, it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay that the dogs bark because a delivery man came, that your kids ran in and needed something from mom, or that your cat showed up and, walked across. Why is it that cats like to show themselves on the screen, like on your keyboard? Dogs are like, where's my treat? But really sponsor that engagement for people. When we moved into the COVID world, I thought, my God, how are we going to keep people engaged online? And so we came up with a form of legalized bribery that you're welcome to copy if you like. We call it hashtag engage to give. And so basically we give engagement points as people participate in exercises, as they make comments, and also as all of the human elements show up. So people's pets, we give points for that. We just had a guy yesterday who went out in the field with his camera to show us his 2 horses to get a big points bonus. And then at the end, we take those points and I make a donation to the charity of their choice in that amount of points. So this week and next week, all of our sprints are supporting Hurricane Ian charities. So we have been donating to Red Cross, the Humane Society, World Central Kitchen, and others. It's been a really popular program, and it really encourages people. I tell them, make me pay, blow away our top, record-breaking points, because we would love to do good. Okay, so all of this is great, but it only exists when you get people to go through it. And I'd like to introduce Kevin McLean. His title is Director at Nationwide Financial and now at Nationwide, but he is the OG innovation team member, the group of three that really put into place the program that took off like a hockey stick and really got innovation going at Nationwide. And Kevin, I'd just like to thank you for jumping into this session for me and all of us, and maybe ask you, how did you get this whole thing started?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Gretchen. Hello, everyone. Happy to be here and talk about this. It was interesting. You went through those 7 items, and it was like a movie playing in my head because it reminded me of all the great stories and events and all the aha moments that actually sort of underscore all those things you said on our journey. And like Gretchen said, we really started kind of our first dedicated innovation practice at Nationwide back in 2014. And it was specific to our financial services division at the time. We now have a corporate enterprise level innovation initiative. We've got an offsite space. We've got embedded in each business their innovation team. So it went from a mighty team of 3 to a massive team of, I don't know if there's a couple hundred people with actually innovation dedicated titles at the company. So it was a massive transformation in a fairly short time. But initially how we started, and there's a lot of points that Gretchen brought up that are there, but I think what we did first, we started innovation as a result of, in our financial services division, we were given by the board a very massive growth goal for one of our businesses. And by massive, it's by an order of billions more than we were doing before. And so we did a strategic look at how much, where are we going to find that growth? And we didn't find a lot of places that was going to be easy. So, and this is when we brought in Gretchen, because we'd had experience with Gretchen before and other things, and we asked her to sort of help us walk through an initiative, sort of look at that. And we looked at it in terms of first, how much could we get organically, and then how much is left, and what do we do with that? And what was left was about $4 billion we had to do in 5 years. And so we called that our innovation goal, was $4 billion. Now, granted, when we started working through it, like, what does that mean and how do we achieve that $4 billion? We started introducing the concept of core, adjacent, transformational, and how do we create a portfolio of innovation. A lot of the core actually went into that organic growth, which was a much bigger number, but we were still left with about $3.5–4 billion for innovation. So that's adjacent and or transformational. And then when we started talking about that, we had to bring in what were the product directors at the time, which used to be my role, leading a particular set of products. And we brought them in as part of the exercise of understanding what that meant and how are we going to find $4 billion in 5 years. It was a long journey, a lot of work doing that, but I think that's one of the best places to start, is have a very clear goal, almost a push goal from somebody else saying, you've got to do kind of something impossible, which you think is impossible. And that really sort of aligns people to the activity. And then our bringing in our immediate, so the people responsible for the products that were going to generate that $4 billion or that space, as part of the exercise to learn along with you. So that was about 5 people that came in with us from that very early start of them realizing, and they were all fairly competent. Well, we can hit $4 billion. We could probably get there. But to be honest, in retrospect, they're like, yeah, I had no idea how we were going to do that. I didn't know what that meant. Innovation was a word I didn't know at the time. And it wasn't as, it was around, but it wasn't as deeply embedded in companies as it is now, back in 2014. So once we got our goal and we figured out we had an innovation portfolio, we had target either spaces or markets we thought we had opportunities to build that $4 billion in over the 5 years. And that was kind of the what we were going to achieve or why we were doing it. Now it's like, how are we going to do that? How do we get to the how part of it? What does this look like? And this is where Gretchen was instrumental, and I can't give her enough credit for kind of what we did. But we realized, as part of what we were learning from her and learning on our own about innovation, is it's a whole nother language, the whole set of tools, is a completely different way of looking at our business. And we can't be, our team of 3 and even the 5 partners in the business can't be the only ones talking like this, right? If we're looking to do new things, we got to get other people to do the new things with us. And so we did only what we could do, is we reached out to the immediate group that was reporting kind of the same structure we were. So kind of our peers that also supports that line of business. And then we individually had connections to people we'd work with, because at that point I'd been there like 20 years at that point. And so we all had connections from all over. So we all pulled those people in as well. And we started developing training programs. Eventually led to a long off 3-day boot camp. But we did individuals and then we did the boot camp. And we kind of created, we called them, kind of evangelize innovation where we could. We got people to really believe in what they were doing, kind of talk the same language, and really want to go out there and do things differently, and gave them tools to do it. Which was great. And we got initial excitement, but kind of petered out a bit because those people were being sent off into work groups that didn't have the language, didn't know the structure, didn't have the tools, and they weren't really equipped or capable of teaching them. So then we realized what you really should be doing is pulling in work teams, people who are working on a project, so that the majority of the people that are doing something actively can immediately take those skills and use it in their everyday work. So we started having the people that had done the classes randomly convince their work groups to come in, and we would teach them. And we go immediately in the class. The end of every boot camp was literally focusing on their immediate needs, their programs, their problems, and stuff like that. And then we had some success out of those. There's a couple things. This doesn't happen like this normally, but there was a direct line from one of the product directors, took the training, came up with a great idea, very quickly implemented and raised a lot. It was quite successful. But anyway, so that then once we sort of got the teams working and there was immediately use and there was a lot of people, it just took off from there. And we had people knocking on our door. We had a schedule. We were doing one-off programs. We were doing boot camps all over the place. And it really just exploded from that point. But that progress of kind of getting traction where we could, and making sure that it had a value to those people and they could use it initially in their work, that sort of created that tsunami effect and the wave just grew. And we beat that $4 billion goal in 2 years. So. And then they just reset it on us.
I'm so sorry. This is the part of being a moderator, which I hate, because I would love to keep on going. We're right on time. I'm so sorry for everybody. I feel like I could have listened to you, well, forever and ever. The problem is there is a next session beginning right now. So what I would suggest is keep the conversation going either on the platform, or please somehow find your way through Gretchen and Kevin and discuss with them, because I think the topic is kind of one of the most important ones in innovation right now. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so sorry to have to cut you short, but that's unfortunately life. So thank you very much. I hope everybody enjoyed it as much as I did, and see you in the next session.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. And the next session is fantastic. If you don't know Susan, she is just amazing. Okay, thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Max.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Kevin. It was very
Thank you, everyone who was able to join us.